Okay? Alright, I'll see you in a minute, sweetie pie.
My dad needs help using the bathroom and getting in bed. He can't lay down by himself.
He can't play baseball that good. He can't like play golf with us. He can't play football.
Of disability or the mainstream media's projection of the proper disability message.
People with disabilities, professionals with disabilities, are often typecast. And so we get locked into the disability role, and the general media looks at us and says, well, that's not going to be of interest to the general population. So On a Roll, I don't think ever gained the platform it deserved.
Realize that there's things that the old body can't do anymore like it used to, you know, and I can relate to 80, 90-year-old guys that are saying that because it's happened to me in the last 5 years.
It's something we're calling facilitated sex. So someone may use their personal care attendant or their personal service attendant to do other what we call activities of daily living. Whether you're somebody who's alone and needs your attendant to help set up for you, maybe plug in a vibrator, position it, turn it on, or whether it be you need your attendant to help transfer you into bed with a partner and then leave, or whether you need that attendant to stay. But the truth of the matter is that many people need help. They need help in other activities of daily living, and they need help in expressing their sexuality.
As I expand my horizons, there are new opportunities to do things that I never had the chance to do in the past that I still can do. So
we'll see him, the strength coach, you know, on national TV, really inspiring people with and without disabilities really to flex their intellectual, emotional, and loving muscles.
Meet my friend Dr. Mitch Tepper. He's a clinical sexologist and founder of one of the best sites online for good information about sex. It's called sexualhealth.com. Now, as you can see, Mitch is also disabled and is one of the leading experts in the country on sex and the disabled. But he can also speak about many other issues concerning sexuality, including sexual compulsive behavior. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
There is a stereotype, myth, if you will, that disabled people cannot have sex, they can't possibly enjoy sex, especially those folks who are disabled from the waist down. Straighten us out on that.
Well, that's a stereotype because there's no really positive images of people with disabilities having sex in the media, and so that's the impression that people get. But people with disabilities, we come in all shapes and sizes, and even people without feeling or without movement below their waist can have a great sex life and can even experience pleasure and orgasm.
You and I have chatted about this subject many times, and I was telling you about this one guy that I interviewed who can't have any, he doesn't have any feeling below the waist, but when his wife plays with his nipples, he can have an orgasm. Another guy told me when his wife plays with the back of his neck, he can get very turned on.
I think that from people with disabilities, we can learn about our potential for sexual expression through a very different channels. It would be no surprise to anybody if I said my wife was able to have an orgasm through nipple stimulation.
Right.
But when we talk about that for a man, it seems like, oh, this is something special. But people can develop different parts of their body to be erogenous zones and to be orgasmic. And in some situations where people have spinal cord injury, there's an area above the level of their injury, wherever it may be, called a hypersensitive zone. And there are spots in that zone that may be orgasmic.
So just to put a fine point on what you're saying is that the lesson perhaps for the non-disabled community is that we are maybe too genitally oriented for sexual pleasure?
Yes. I mean, when people aren't challenged by having to find new and creative ways to express their sexuality, sometimes no learning ever happens. So people can be going on in a relationship, having sex the same way, and it becomes habitual. And obviously, when we look at the national statistics in our country, a great amount of people are just not sexually satisfied.
Right, right. Most disabled people are involved with non-disabled people. And I would think that there is not a lot of sexual information out there for those particular couples. Am I right about that?
Yes, and that's why I started initially the website sexualhealth.com. The initial focus was on easy access to information for people with disabilities and chronic conditions and those people who love them. And because everyone said there's no information.
Right.
But it was hidden away in academic journals. There's very little research, so I took it upon myself to use the internet to get that out there and mushroom from there.
Sure. Positions, I would think. Sexual positions have to be different and tailored for this community, right?
Sexual positions, well, actually, yes. I mean, I suggest a lot of pillows and a lot of variation, but positions is only one aspect.
Sure.
It starts really with communication, with being able to be comfortable with your partner and with whatever differences there are. And then, positions, I always tell people, positions, whether you get an erection or not, whether you're lubricated or not, those things are the easy part of the puzzle.
Yeah. You've been running sexualhealth.com now for 7 years this month.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Anniversary.
How have the questions that you've been receiving changed over the years?
Well, first, the volume has increased tremendously, and we've always had a range of questions from which the ones I call, am I normal?
Yeah.
My ejaculate is yellow, it's lumpy, my discharge, has a slight smell, and we still get those. But the acuity of the questions over the years have been getting higher and higher, which means like people are doing their research, they're seeing their doctor, they're asking questions, they're not finding the answers, and they're coming to me with very complex questions.
Such as?
Such as one I answered last night. I went for a discectomy. They removed a disc at L4, L5, so there's a lower back pain with the disc. They removed the disc, resulted in something called quad equina syndrome, which affected her bowel bladder and sexual function. So now, she identified herself as a very sexual woman before this. Now she has no feeling in her clitoris. She has some sensation in her vagina, but it feels quite strange when her boyfriend is in her. And she's wondering, will she ever be able to have an orgasm again? She's wondering, she leaks, but it's not urine. She says she checked. She finds that embarrassing. She says she's wondering if the relationship will last because of these differences. So, that's all in one question, and, she's gone now 3 months like this without any information from her doctor.
If we're more sexually sophisticated, as you're suggesting, does that mean we're more comfortable with our sexuality?
No. I think that when people are faced with a sexual problem, it's a major concern. And traditionally, people have not been comfortable asking their doctors, and doctors have not been comfortable asking questions about sexuality. With the convenience and the privacy of the internet, people are beginning to know that we'll go online and we'll look and we'll see if we can find information. And the beauty of sexualhealth.com is that I have 50 people like you and other doctors in the field who volunteer to help me out. So people can come and ask questions. Often people are almost looking for second opinions.
Yeah. You have a section on your site about sexual compulsive behavior. Some people call it sexual addiction. First of all, define terms. What are we talking about here?
Well, in the field of sex therapy and the other field of addiction therapy, we like to think of them as working together. And we did have a joint panel at one of our conferences. But, within the profession, they argue about the words. People call it sexual addiction, and there's a whole sexual addiction area of studies. Other people like to use the word sexual compulsion. Whatever you choose to call it, I'd say when somebody is losing control of their ability to
maybe live their life, that sex is
to live
overruling their lives.
Right. So when you end up spending all night on the internet following links to, you know, adult sites, and you end up spending, you know, on your credit card to, you know, you're in financial trouble, and in the morning you can't function at work, and you're not happy about it, and this pattern just repeats itself, then you have a problem, whether you call it addiction, whether you call it a compulsion, whether you call it, you know, a loss of control.
It's interfering with the normal state of your life.
Yes.
Okay.
I think.
But we want to make the point here, though. We're not talking about somebody who has a very healthy sexual appetite.
No. And
because those terms, sometimes we use the term, oh, he must be a sex addict.
And that's the fear.
Yeah.
Or even if someone has a sexual interest that's different than, quote unquote, the norm.
Right.
And that's the fear of labeling addiction as an addiction, is that people who, as you say, you know, if you masturbate twice a day, are you a sex addict?
Right.
Well, yeah, if I only masturbate, you know, once a month or never, then you're a sex addict. And that's what we're afraid of. And then people take on these labels. Oh, you know, I'm a sex addict, so then they give up their sense that they have control over what they do. So we like to leave people with the sense that they do have control. It's not quite like a cocaine addiction.
Where there's a substance involved,
where
an addictive substance.
Yeah, I mean,
it's more like gambling, I would think.
Sex can be an addictive substance in that you get a quick surge, a high, you know, and so you keep looking for this. So, you know, it's an internal high that you get and people continue to look for. But it's not an external substance.
More male than female?
I'm not exactly sure on the statistics. Yes, more men have been, but I think that more women are running into problems too. I mean, I'd say traditionally it was more men, and I think with access, more women are running into difficulties too.
Mitch, great to have you here.
You too. Thank you very much.
Good to see you. Be sure to log on to Mitch Tepper's website, sexualhealth.com. Up next, Playgirl celebrates its 30th anniversary. And later, Menopause the Musical. You're watching Naked New York on Metro TV.